Welcome back to another episode of the Cleveland Real Estate Podcast. My name is Sebastian Lorenzo, and we are here with Rebecca Donatelli yet again for part 2 of the Embodying Leadership Early On episode. How are you, Rebecca?
I'm great. Good to see you again. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much. And I appreciate you taking the time to do part 2. So in the first episode, if you haven't heard it, go back. It's episode 10. But on the first episode, Rebecca kind of goes into how she got started in real estate, her first book, and a few of the things that she did to become Realtor Magazine 30 Under 30. Now, this episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about what Rebecca's done to achieve Realtor Magazine 30 Under 30, the year that she got it, what did her sort of daily schedule look like, and that sort of thing. And then we'll also touch on her decision to move to Sotheby's and a little bit about how she balances all the things that she's involved in. So, Rebecca, just to start off again, you achieved Realtor Magazine 30 Under 30 among 1,000 other accolades, it seems like. What did you do differently the year that you got 30 Under 30? What was your day-to-day look like? I guess from start to finish, every single day, what did that look like?
Yeah. So I'll preface this by saying that I applied for the class of 2018, full knowing I was not going to be selected for that class. And I found that out when the Realtor Magazine came out and I was not on that list. So I'll preface that by saying, what happened was I went to Chicago, which I think this was in part 1 a little bit. So I apologize if I'm repeating, but it does answer the question essentially. So I went to Chicago for the YPN retreat at the time, Advance Now. I was vice chair of YPN for our local association, Lake and Geauga Area Association of Realtors. And I was there for 2 days, just brainstorming all things YPN, meeting a ton of people. And there were a lot of folks there that were I wasn't a 30 Under 30 at the time, but they were 30 Under 30 honorees. And I had applied, hadn't gotten it. So I started talking to them, and they were so beyond willing to help me kind of navigate that. And really, when they put the applications out, they receive hundreds and hundreds of people that are wanting to have a 30 Under 30 spot. So, they're looking for folks that are standing out, that are doing something different. So the year that I got it, after I talked to them to kind of figure out what they had done, like what made them get selected. And I had, at that point, already started building an Instagram presence, which is essentially where a majority of my business has come from. Just posting essentially my world on there and kind of letting people in, if you will. But on top of that, I had, by that point, gotten pretty involved with my local association that I served as president of last year. It was my first year on the board of directors. Like I said, I was vice chair of the YPN. So I was starting to do more volunteer leadership at that point. I started investing in RPAC, which is the Realtors Political Action Committee. If you follow me on social media, you see me posting about it all the time. Very near and dear to my heart. And so I started investing pretty heavily in RPAC at that point. And then I had my team, and we were just rocking it out. I mean, we were just selling houses, kind of doing our thing. And I had also started doing some public speaking at that point as well. So I started traveling a little bit, not quite as much until after I got 30 Under 30, but I did start traveling a little bit to speak about building a real estate presence and a business through the use of social media. So it was kind of like a blend of all of those different things that were essentially the factors of, the 30 Under 30. I said, they get a ton of people. So you could be a huge producer, but if you don't have anything unique about you that makes you stand out, you could be selling 100 million and you might not stand out from the group. So they're really looking for those people that have a very unique story. And the great thing is, because I was nervous that, our average price point in Cleveland is much lower than a majority of the other people that apply for 30 Under 30 around the country, but they only look at per region. So they're not going to compare my volume to somebody out in, LA or whatever.
Right. Makes sense.
And the year that I got it, even though my volume was lower than most of the people in my class, my transaction count was at, close to the top of it. So they look at a number of things. They look at transaction count, volume, and just what makes you unique, what stands out. So my schedule that year, to wrap all that up into the content was crazy, because I was dipping my toes into a lot of different things. Yeah. I hadn't started writing at that point. That came later, but it was just me kind of taking my whole business to the next level, knocking it out with the team, and putting myself out there on social media just to, build my business that way. So
yeah, for sure. And I think, I saw you obviously have like a ton of followers, and I can imagine that like, eventually, and I mean, I guess you can share some of this, because this is something I think I'd be interested in knowing for myself, and I'm sure other people would like to know too. So starting from, let's just say, the time that you weren't posting as heavily to now, what would you attribute all the followers that you gained and all the sort of the engagement that you're getting on social media? Like, how'd you build that up?
Yeah. At first it was trial and error about my content and things that I was doing, because when I started the Instagram, there was absolutely no rhyme or reason to me. Like, I didn't think I was going to have any business. It was strictly at first it's just a hobby. I love real estate. Yeah. I love photography. It makes sense. There was definitely a part of me that was doing it, to stand out, because as I said in the first part of the episode, being a younger realtor can be tough at times. And I found myself going to listing appointments and buyer consultations up against realtors that have been around for 20 years, and I'm brand new. So I have to figure out a way for me to stand out. And so social media kind of became that outlet, because even though I was newer to the industry, I knew social media. I mean, it was something that I knew how to use. And so really with the content and stuff like that, it was really trial and error. When I first started posting, it was straight real estate, everything real estate, houses and kitchens and, sales. And my engagement was good. And I was building a following fairly quickly, but I remember the first time I ever posted a picture of myself. And I think it was a selfie I had taken. I was going to an Algar Halloween party. It was actually our annual meeting, which I didn't know it was an annual meeting at the time. I thought it was a Halloween party. And this might have been, I think this was like 2016. And I remember I posted it and my engagement like shot up. And I was like, oh my gosh, it kind of made me think for a second. People like the real estate stuff, but this is the first time they're ever even putting a face to the content. And so I kind of started building more of like me, Rebecca Donatelli, the person, into my Instagram world, my real estate world, so people could get to know me. Because, when you think about it, I mean, here in Northeast Ohio, a buyer or seller has, over 8,000 choices of realtors they can work with, because there's over 8,000 realtors in the Northeast Ohio area. So, when they're looking on social media or just picking in general and maybe not even thinking about social media, what's going to make you stand out? How are they going to decide to work with you? So I just started playing around with the content a little bit. I started connecting with realtors all around the country that I, didn't know. I wasn't involved in leadership at the time, so I hadn't met anybody, face to face, and really just started playing around with that kind of content. I also started engaging with people regularly. So if like another realtor that I connected with posted a listing, I'd give them a, oh my God, what a great price. Even though I don't know anything about a lot of markets. It could have been overpriced and I didn't know. But it was just a way for me to like, give them a little boost and in turn, hopefully build that relationship with them. And so that really was the key in just building the following and the engagement. And then when the stories became a thing, I kind of like shifted a little bit more weight into the stories, because it's cool because you can see who's watching you. You can post in real time. You're not as concerned about making it look as, perfect as something you post on your feed. So, and the great thing with the stories is that there's a lot more direct communication. Like people feel it's more of like a safe place for people to connect with you, because when someone responds to a story, it's private. So it just goes to me. The whole world doesn't see it. So that's really what I started doing, and just, not being afraid to reach out to people. I reached out to local businesses, even businesses that weren't local. Just introduce yourself, say hi. And it happens over time. I mean, I've had my real estate Instagram for 6 of the 7 years I've been in the business. So, it's definitely something that takes time, and you just have to play around, with the content and what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's true for me. I mean, I had my own like work sort of Instagram, and when I was just posting about work, like, no one really cared. But like as you start posting yourself and your life and stuff, people like that. So I can see that myself sort of firsthand. All right. So you mentioned a little bit that you were on a team, or rather you and your team did, a bunch of volume the year that you did. You got 30 under 30. And I know that you were with another company, and then you moved, I think you mentioned that on the first part, and you moved to Sotheby's. So what was your decision? I guess, how did you make the decision to move to Sotheby's?
Yeah. I was only with one other brokerage. McDowell Homes was the brokerage I was with for 7 years. I've been in the business about 7.5 now. So, I was with them a long time. When I started with the company, I was like one of 5 agents, and, had the pleasure of helping open the Solon office there, and watching the company grow. And I love that company and my broker over there very dearly. But I think my business and kind of what I was doing was starting to change a little bit. And Sotheby's, I think I might have mentioned this in the first one. I don't know if I did, but, we're an international brand, and we have, offices, I think over like 25,000 agents. There's a lot of offices, but we're newer to the Cleveland area. My broker here, who I have served in leadership with for a number of years and know pretty well, she opened this office in the summer of 2021. I'm trying to keep it's now 2023, so keep the dates straight.
Right.
So newer to Cleveland, and I know a lot of Sotheby's agents around the country just from, leadership stuff and connecting with people. I just felt as though where my brand was going, like this was a little bit of a better fit for me. It was nothing against McDowell or anyone or anything that was there. I love that company, and I'm still very close with many people that are there. It just made sense for me. It was a weird time for me to move, I will say, because I was in the middle of my presidency, and it was incredibly busy last year with the board. So it was like I made my move, and I didn't really have the time that you typically have, which this is the first time I've ever moved. So I'm saying this not really from having experience moving companies, but typically when you move, you take your time to like get settled and get all your stuff out. I was go because my business is crazy. The association stuff with the presidency was crazy. So it was a little bit of a hazy time. But I love this company so much. I love my broker dearly. Everyone here is incredible. It's definitely a great fit for me. It just fits better for where I'm at with my business and I think my brand right now. So
yeah, cool. That's awesome. Yeah. And so with everything, I guess, that you're involved in, because I know, obviously I have you on social media and I see all the stuff that you do on the political side, and then also your regular, real estate stuff. How do you balance everything? I guess different aspects of work, right? Including politics and all that. But but then also have like your social life and friends and family and all that stuff. Like how do you balance everything?
Yeah. I'll be honest, it's busy. I run with a really full schedule. I get up every day at 5:30, and I have a little morning routine that I do. I go for a run, I walk my dog, I have my coffee, I write my gratitude journal, and then I get ready for my day. And every day for me, which this is the same for any realtor, I would say, even the folks that are not involved in doing other things aside from just selling, every day is totally different. You might have one day where you're, sitting in your office all day, doing busy work or making calls or, lead generating or whatever. And then other days you're out showing property all day and with clients. So every day is different, but for me, it really is very different. Some days I have meetings, like this morning I had an NAR, Zoom call. So it's a mix. I write, I try to write every day. It's hard. It's hard to write every day, and I have to be like in a certain mindset that feels right when I'm writing. So it's a mix of everything, and then, having my Rebecca time. But I love the way that I have my schedule, and I feel like even though people think that I just work all the time, like I have a really great work-life balance is, I guess what people want to call it. I spend so much time with my friends and my family. Like I go, I have my running time, my writing time, like all that other stuff. And it works for me. Like it just makes me happy. Sure. I'll be honest. I love everything that I'm doing so much that I don't feel like I'm working ever. Like, obviously there's, we all have stressful deals. We all have stressful things. And last year was definitely a different year for me, just with the presidency and everything. It was an incredible experience, but it was very busy. But I just love what I'm doing, and I was thinking about it. I feel like there's this expectation that we all have to have this like perfect. You work and then you put the work down and you're done, and you have to go home and do whatever. Like there's this like societal expectation of everybody. And I just feel like everybody should run to their own, everyone should do their own thing. It's totally different for everybody. And I will say, I don't have kids yet, so I like them, but they haven't come yet. So, what that will change for me. When I have kids, for sure. That totally changes things. But for now, like, and I think it's just knowing what works for you. Like when I go out to dinner, when I'm with my friends, or I'm even just having some me time where I don't want to be working. If I have a client that asks to go see property and I'm just not available, or a meeting or something, I just say I have another appointment. I might not be doing anything work related, but that's none of their business. And I feel like you get to a point where you do have to put yourself first, and whatever that looks like for you. You might be working all day, and that's okay. Or you might take the day off and not work, not work at all. So I think it's just different for everyone. And I think so many of us like put this pressure on to just have this like perfect schedule of this like expectation that society has and everybody else has. And I feel like you should just do your own thing. So, for me, it's every day is different. Every weekend is different. It's just whatever works. So, and I think it's hard at first, because when you're balancing a lot of different things, like you're wearing a lot of hats, and you also have to make sure that your clients know that, just because you wear other hats doesn't mean that their, transaction, their sale is not going to be a priority. So that I think is important too, but
no, absolutely. So there's something, I don't know if you've heard of, Gary V before, but Gary V talks about, this thing called work-life, like people say work-life balance, and he calls it work-life integration. And I like that a lot, because like for some people will hate their job, and, they have their 9 to 5 and whatever, but for people who like love their job, it's very, especially when you do something like in sales where you don't have a fixed 9 to 5, like you kind of do whatever, whenever. Right. And so you can mix things. Like there's it's totally possible, at least for my career, that, being a lender, you don't have to be physically, like a realtor. I don't have to show houses or anything, but if I want to go on vacation, I can still work on vacation. And, and so that to me is work-life integration. So anyway, I think, very similar to what you're saying. If you want to take a day off on a Monday, then you can. There's some agents that I've talked to that don't work Mondays, and they just work Tuesday to Saturday. So, I don't know, you kind of figure it out yourself and go from there. So, well, I mean, I think between part one, part two, I think there's been a lot of good information on here. And I know that part two, it's honestly gone a lot longer than I expected, but I think that's awesome because there's so much good stuff in here. So Rebecca, what are, I guess, going forward, I know you're really heavy on social media. So what are some of the ways people can contact you who might, have some sort of want some advice from you or just, want to talk to you, period?
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is RebeccaDonatelli.realtor. My contact is on there. So if you go to my profile, you can contact me directly. That's probably the easiest and quickest way to contact me because all of my stuff lives on there. So
awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah. And I'll throw that in the sort of caption of the, or the, I guess the summary of the episode, and we'll, people can find it. But thanks again for being on part two of your episode. I think there's been a lot of good stuff in this episode and the first one. And I wanted to break it up just because I thought that obviously there's so much stuff and making an episode an hour long. A lot of people will, people are busy. So I think it's better just to break it up in little bite-sized pieces. And there's just a lot to learn from you. So thanks so much. And obviously looking forward to keeping up with you on social media and seeing how everything goes for you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Cleveland Real Estate Podcast. If you're a real estate agent in the Cleveland and surrounding areas, reach out to us on Instagram at Cleveland RE Podcast or send us an email at clerepodcast@gmail.com. And if you enjoyed the show, be sure to follow the podcast so you're notified of new episodes going forward. See you next time.